coming on board as a writer. You a lot of the stuff that you've known for are comedy flares. So how'd you
Mhm.
get involved with this?
I I was developing a project with HBO that happened to be a drama, and they felt like they needed, an American voice for the show because Julian's British, so it's a show set in America, and um, and it just kind of went from there. I met with Julian, um, and we got along really well, and I was a former debutante, so I sort of
Okay.
knew, like, obviously didn't know the world of 1880s, but knew
Mhm.
the world of New Money and Old Money and Black Elite, and yeah, I just went from there.
Had you watched the series prior to coming on board, or did you have to play catch up?
No, it wasn't. It hadn't been. It hadn't even been made.
Oh,
This was
okay.
so. It was. This was. It was still. This was
Mhm.
during COVID, and
Oh,
before we
okay.
got anything. So yeah. So I was able. So when I came on board, there was still writing that was being done, and I had my hand in that and producing, and yeah.
Mhm. The show has a lot of layers going in there. Obviously, you got the stories of all these different families. Some serious, there's some comedic elements to it. Obviously, you're not just D, right? I'm sure there are others in the room. How does that balance
It's
out?
just Julian and me.
Okay, so how does that balance out when when you're trying to put in as much characters and layers to their backgrounds and add a little bit of drama and humor to it?
Well, I mean, the characters, for me, writing all begins with character. And so each character has their own individual voice. And it's my privilege and my job to capture that. And, people always ask me, like, who's my favorite, or who do I relate to most, or who do I like writing for most. And I mean, Agnes really reminds me of my mother. And so she's like, I hear that voice. It's she's kind of easy for me to write for, and a lot of fun. I mean, she has a lot of witty, sarcastic slash mean girl comebacks that I enjoy writing. And yeah, I mean, it's all about the characters and the voices. And yes, it's a big ensemble. But what's really fun is that it's you know there's a beginning and middle and end to each character's little journey throughout the season. So
Mhm. When people started watching the show initially, it took a small step, which is great. And then it started taking off. People started talking about the show, and they're like, "Oh, there's black folks on the show as well." Because sometimes, if you don't look at the poster, you look at the Gilded Age, you're like, "Okay, are we in there, or is this another one where we're just playing the maze and in the
yeah,
background?"
yeah,
But then as people start to watch, it's like, "Oh no, they got some prominent roles in there." We know
yeah,
Audrey's not just saying yes to playing somebody, of a certain
exactly.
status. You're like, you don't just put her there. So as the show gets written up, what are the changes that we're getting in season two that's different from season one? Having seen, you know, the greatness that they got for season one,
Well, are we talking specifically for the Scott family or for everyone,
but
or?
just the show itself, like obviously when you see the write ups and once it's done, you see what could be better, what could be improved, what could be taken out, in terms of coming into season two.
Mhm.
What are we getting more out of? Are we getting more or less of something else? Whether it be certain family members, whether it be the tension or so forth.
Well, it's definitely, Bertha has gone to the next level in terms of society, right? So the end of season one, I mean, her daughter's made her debut, but Bertha is essentially making her debut, right? She's accepted by Mr. Astor. Agnes crosses the street, and so she's up a rung and on the society ladder, but that's not enough for her, and it's not enough for any of the characters. I mean, so Bertha wants more power, and George wants more money, and Marian is still trying to find love, and Peggy needs to you know find out about her past so she can really move on with her life. and so the characters are just evolving and progressing, and all, just as we all do, hopefully in life, we learn and grow. And so it's just sort of like, it's bigger and more decadent and opulent and fun. We draw upon like real life things that happened back in the 1880s, and we have great set pieces and amazing set design, of course, and costumes. And so everybody's on their own little adventure and journey, and it's dramatic, and there's heartbreak, and it's juicy. There's everything you want.
For anybody who hasn't watched season 1 and they're coming into season 2, and I always say there's a glut of product that's out there in terms of what's streaming, what's on cable, what's in theaters that you can actually go and see in person. What's a good reason to start catching up to the Gilded Age if you haven't seen season 1, but you now want to start catching up?
Say that again, what's a good reason?
What's the sell to start seeing this show now? Because nowadays, actors always tell me, no one's channel surfing anymore. It's like more about what somebody's telling them what's good out there.
Right.
It's like, so those days of going through 2 to 4 to 7 is like, nah, there's so many channels, you're flipping on. It's like, no, you want to, when you come home and you're turning on your TV, you're going to tune into something you're told about or you heard about.
There isn't like, no one has done the Gilded Age on television yet. And it's a very interesting time because there is huge income inequality, which guess what? We still have that now. There's racism, which we still have now. There's, we have like the robber barons versus the workforce. History does repeat itself because we don't learn. And so I think it's this beautiful period piece that it's like you can escape into it from the horrific news and life and all of that, and at the same time learn from the history and enjoy the ride. So it's fun. There's a lot of romance too this season. Like it's very heartening and sweet, and there's love.
If you can answer this one question before I have to let you go, how have you evolved as a writer doing the show?
Oh my gosh. Tremendously. Like I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I've learned so much from Julian, just not just about writing, the craft of writing, but just running a show. It's like leaps and bounds. I do miss comedy, and then I of course have Agnes, and then I have Bertha getting into things with Mrs. Astor, so I still get to have fun. But yeah, I'm not sure what to liken it to other than I feel like maybe I got my PhD in like a couple of years or something.
Well said. Well said. Well, anyway, congrats on the show. Obviously,
Thank you.
More to come. This is a show that I think can go on for more and more seasons. Let's pray. I'll wait for that renewal press release.
Yeah, so are we.
And we'll talk down the road.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Take care.